Netflix taking a hit today in the pre-market after the company's earnings showed a dramatic slowdown in subscriber numbers because of a dip in production, they said, during the pandemic. Joining us right now with his reaction is Tom Rogers. He's former NBC Cable president and TiVo CEO, and of course he's also the executive chairman of Engine Media and a CNBC contributor. And Tom, Netflix says the reason that they missed subscriber numbers by so much is because they had pulled forward some of those subscribers earlier into the pandemic, because they didn't have new offerings out there, and because people are kind of getting back out there. They didn't think competition was something that was a problem. What do you think?
Well, it's a little hard to tell. I don't particularly buy the notion that their programming was thin. They've done much better in terms of having new programming out there during the pandemic than anybody else. They had some very big shows out there at that point, Bridgerton, Lupin. But look, it was a surprise that they slowed a little bit. Does it derail the Netflix thesis? No. Remember, 2 years ago, they missed by over 2 million subs in the quarter. The stock went down by 10%, and subs soared from there. Valuations soared from there. Even last year, they had a quarter of only 2 million subs. This quarter, they hit 4 million subs. So, look, subs are going to be lumpy. It does suggest it's not so easy to build subscribers in the streaming world. I think others are going to struggle some with sluggishness, even more than Netflix does. But if I had to say, would I prefer Netflix hand than anybody else's in the streaming world? Absolutely.
Hey, Tom, let's just run through that. I mean, the company really went out of its way to say that they didn't see competition from all of these other streaming services as being a problem. And I can see why they'd say that. The data may not show them that, but if it is competition from other streaming services, then that's a much bigger problem in the future, because that competition is not going away. How much of this do you think is just subscriber growth that got pulled forward? How much of this is competition? Again, going back to that, do you think competition is part of the problem? It's not something you just mentioned.
Well, when they mentioned competition, they were very clear to say churn was actually lower than a year ago, which is a pretty good sign that you're dealing well with competition, and that additional subs coming in were the same pattern in markets where they weren't seeing competition as where they were. So they had some pretty good data, I suppose, to suggest that it really wasn't competitive dynamics. I think when revenue's up by 24%, when you're the leading streamer in a world that's gone streaming, and you got 1 billion cable and satellite subs out there, and Netflix is at 200 million, everybody faces competition, but you got to look at the size of the market, with cable satellite subs declining, people cutting the cord, and an enormous market out there that's well beyond what Netflix has today.
I guess the other question becomes, though, when you are so successful, when do you run into this law of large numbers that says you just are not going to see the same growth numbers you've seen in the past because you're so big?
Well, you know, in the UK, they've already exceeded the number of cable satellite subs in that market. They're well below still by 10 million or more the number of cable satellite subs in this market. Does suggest that they can grow beyond the size of cable satellite, given what's going on in the UK. You know, the issues with Netflix, the bear thesis has changed over the years. You know, it was first that if you lose friends in office, it's over. And obviously that wasn't true. Then it was, well, if you're going to fill it with originals, they're going to be poor quality. And look at the Oscars coming up this weekend. They got 17 movies up. They had 20 TV shows up at the Golden Globes. Then it was, they're never going to hit cash positive because they're spending so much money on programming. And now they hit cash positive. Interestingly, Disney stopping its dividend and Netflix saying that it's going to start a stock buyback. And now the thesis is competition. I must say the one number that did give me some pause was projecting only 1 million subs next quarter. The bull case on Netflix is it's going to hit 300 million subs or more by 2024. That suggests that you need 20 million subs, new subs a year or more for the next 4 years. you have a couple quarters of 1 million subs, and it's going to push out hitting that 300 million number in 2024. So it's been lumpy. They've had quarters like this before and then huge sub growth. So I do think you got to look at whether or not they're going to have a couple more of these quarters, but I wouldn't over attribute it to the competition.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.